The stars had been quiet for 300 years. In the vast darkness between worlds, 3 great fleets moved through space like clockwork. Each fleet belonged to one of the 3 most powerful races in the galaxy. They had not fought a real war in longer than most could remember. Admiral Hyon Su stood on the bridge of his massive ship, the Eternal Brood. The ship was alive in ways that other races found disturbing. Its walls pulsed with a slow heartbeat. Biomechanical creatures scurried through the corridors, maintaining systems and carrying messages. Hyon Su himself was tall and thin, with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see in spectrums others could not imagine. His race, the Vithrak, had turned war into biology. Their ships grew rather than being built. Their weapons were living, things that could think and adapt. But they had not needed to adapt in a very long time. Far across the star system, War Coordinator Bora floated in the crystal chamber at the heart of the prismatic dawn. The Nexari ship looked like a massive geometric sculpture made of pure light. Its surfaces shifted and changed color as information flowed through crystalline networks. Bora's body was partly solid, partly energy, constantly shifting between states of matter. The Nexari had evolved beyond physical form centuries ago. They fought wars with mathematics and light patterns that could scramble enemy computers or blind their sensors. Their weapons were beautiful and precise. Every shot was calculated to cause exactly the right amount of damage and no more. The 3rd Fleet belonged to Fleet Marshal Dong Min and his people, the Thumorians. Their ship, Storm's Eye, looked like a massive cloud with engines. It had no solid parts that anyone could see. The Thumorians lived in the gas layers of giant planets and had built their technology around controlling weather and atmosphere. Dongmin himself was more gas than solid, held together by electromagnetic fields. His people fought by creating storms in space and using atmospheric pressure as a weapon. All 3 fleets followed the same rules. War was not about destroying enemies anymore. It was about proving points. When 2 races disagreed about territory or resources, they would meet in space and fight according to the doctrine of measured conflict. This doctrine had been agreed upon by all civilized races. It made war safe and predictable. Under the doctrine, battles had strict rules. Each side could use only certain numbers of ships. Weapons could only be set to certain power levels. When one side lost a specific percentage of their forces, they would surrender and negotiate. No one died unnecessarily. No planets were destroyed. No species faced extinction. The 3 admirals had been conducting a joint patrol when their sensors detected something unusual. A ship had entered their space without permission. It was moving toward the inner systems where billions of beings lived on peaceful worlds. "Unknown vessel detected," reported Hyon Su's biomechanical sensor operator. The creature's voice buzzed with insect-like harmonics. "Design is primitive. Materials appear to be basic metals and ceramics." On the prismatic dawn, Bora's crystalline consciousness processed the same information. The ship was crude by Nexari standards. It had no elegant mathematical curves. Its surface was rough and covered with what looked like simple projectile weapons. "Analysis complete," Bora announced to the crystal chamber. "Vessel appears to be pre-warp civilization attempting interstellar travel." Fleet Marshal Dong Min's atmospheric sensors told a similar story. "Atmospheric analysis of the vessel shows oxygen, nitrogen breathing crew," he reported to his cloud bridge. "Technology level approximately 800 years behind current galactic standard." The 3 fleets began to converge on the unknown ship. This was standard procedure. When a new race entered galactic space, the 3 powers would meet them together and explain how civilization worked. Most new species were grateful to learn about the doctrine of measured conflict. It saved them from the chaos and destruction that had marked their primitive wars on their home worlds. As they approached, the unknown ship came into visual range. It was smaller than any of their vessels, perhaps 300 meters long. Its hull was dark gray metal with burn marks and scratches that suggested it had seen combat. Strange symbols were painted on its side in bright white. Most unusual were the weapons. Instead of the elegant energy systems used by civilized races, this ship carried what appeared to be magnetic rail guns, missile tubes, and other kinetic weapons. Primitive but functional, observed Hyun-Soo. His biomechanical advisors agreed. The ship might be crude, but it was clearly built for war. That was interesting. Most new races they encountered had moved beyond physical violence. The three fleets took their standard positions. Hyun-Soo's Eternal Brood positioned itself directly in front of the unknown vessel. Its biomechanical hull bristled with living weapons that could adapt to any threat. Bora's Prismatic Dawn moved to the left, its crystal surfaces creating beautiful patterns of light that could confuse enemy sensors or deliver precise energy strikes. Dongmin's Storm's Eye drifted to the right, already beginning to generate small atmospheric disturbances that would demonstrate the Morian power. "Open communications," ordered Hyun-Soo. His biomechanical communications officer, a creature that was part insect and part machine, established contact with the unknown ship. "Unknown vessel," Hyun-Soo transmitted on all frequencies. "You have entered space controlled by the Galactic Union. Identify yourself and state your intentions." For a moment, there was no response. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was rough and direct, speaking in a language that their computers quickly translated. "This is Captain Jinwoo of the UES Iron Wolf. State your intentions or stand down." The three admirals looked at each other through their communication links. This was not the usual response. New races were typically frightened or curious when they met the galactic powers. They asked questions about technology or begged for mercy. They did not make demands. "Did this primitive just tell us to stand down?" asked Bora, her crystalline voice crackling with amusement. "I believe it did," replied Dongmin, his gaseous form rippling with what might have been laughter. Hyun-Soo was less amused. His biomechanical instincts were telling him something was wrong. The ship was outnumbered 3-1. Its technology was obviously inferior. Yet its captain spoke as if he held the advantage. "UES Iron Wolf," Hyun-Soo responded. "You are greatly outnumbered. We represent the three most powerful races in the galaxy. We suggest you prepare for standard first contact procedures." "Negative," came the immediate reply from Captain Jinwoo. "I asked you to state your intentions. Are you here to fight or to talk?" This was definitely not standard first contact behavior. Bora's crystalline computers ran through thousands of historical examples. No new race had ever been so direct or aggressive during initial meetings. "We are here to welcome you to galactic civilization," Dongmin transmitted, his atmospheric generators creating gentle light displays. "We will teach you the proper ways of conducting disputes between starfaring races." "I see," came Jinwoo's voice. There was a pause. Then, "And if we don't want to learn?" The question hung in space like a challenge. The three admirals had never been asked such a thing. Every race wanted to learn. Galactic civilization offered technology, trade, and peace. The alternative was remaining primitive and alone. "All civilized races follow the doctrine of measured conflict," explained Hyun-Soo patiently. "It prevents the terrible wars that mark primitive civilizations. Surely you do not wish to continue such barbaric practices." Another pause. When Jinwoo spoke again, his voice carried something the aliens had not heard in centuries. It was not fear or curiosity or even anger. It was certainty. "Captain Jinwoo to all vessels. We are humans from Earth. We did not come here looking for a fight, but we are prepared for one. Our ship may look primitive to you, but we have something you seem to have forgotten. We remember what war really means." The communication ended. The Iron Wolf continued on its course, neither speeding up nor slowing down. It made no aggressive moves, but it also showed no sign of backing down. For the first time in 300 years, the three most powerful races in the galaxy faced an opponent who did not understand their rules. They had no idea what that meant, but they were about to find out. War was coming to the galaxy again. Real war. And the aliens had forgotten how to fight it. The three alien fleets began their standard intimidation display. It was a beautiful sight that had convinced countless primitive races to submit to galactic civilization. Admiral Hyun-Soo gave the signal, and the Eternal Brood released a cloud of biomechanical drones. They moved in perfect formation, creating complex patterns in space. Each drone was a living weapon, its biomechanical brain connected to the ship's central nervous system. War Coordinator Bora activated the Prismatic Dawn's light display systems. The crystal ship began to glow with mathematical precision. Geometric patterns of pure energy spread outward from its hull. The patterns were not just beautiful, they were functional. Each light sequence could disable enemy computers or overload their sensors. The display showed any watching enemy exactly how advanced Nexari technology had become. Fleet Marshal Dong Min began generating atmospheric disturbances around the storm's eye. Clouds of charged particles formed spiral patterns in the vacuum of space. Lightning danced between invisible gas clouds. The display demonstrated the Thumorian ability to create weather in the emptiness between stars. The three demonstrations combined into a spectacular show of power. Any primitive race would be overwhelmed by the display. Most would immediately request peaceful contact. Some would flee in terror. All would understand that resistance was hopeless. The human ship continued flying straight toward them. "Are they not responding to the display?" asked Bora. Her crystalline sensors showed the human vessel had not changed course or speed. "Perhaps their sensors are too primitive to detect our demonstrations," suggested Dong Min. His atmospheric readings showed the human ship was not even scanning their formations. Hyun Su was beginning to feel concerned. His biomechanical instincts were evolved from millions of years of warfare. Something about the human response was wrong. Prey animals either fled or submitted when faced with overwhelming force. Predators attacked or postured aggressively. The humans were doing none of these things. A communication signal came from the Iron Wolf. Captain Jin Woo's voice was calm and slightly amused. "Fascinating light show? Are you done posturing?" The three admirals stared at their communication screens. No one had ever called a full galactic power display posturing before. "The human does not seem impressed," observed Bora. "Impossible," replied Dongmin. "Our combined display shows technological superiority in every category. Any rational being would recognize their disadvantage." On the bridge of the Iron Wolf, Lieutenant So Young was analyzing the alien formations through her tactical display. She was young for her rank, but had graduated first in her class from the Naval Academy. Her specialty was pattern recognition and tactical analysis. "Captain," she reported, "the alien formations are primarily ceremonial. Their positioning maximizes visual impact, but creates significant tactical vulnerabilities." Captain Jin Woo nodded. He was a veteran of the Outer Colony, wars, where humans had learned to fight against overwhelming odds. His weathered face showed the stress of years commanding ships in desperate battles. "What about their weapons?" Chief Engineer Tae Hyun looked up from his console. He was older than the rest of the crew, a grizzled veteran who had kept ships, running through impossible situations. "Their energy signatures suggest they're holding back significant firepower, sir. It's like they're deliberately using reduced settings." Communications Officer Min Ho had been monitoring alien transmissions. He was the youngest member of the bridge crew, but had a gift for understanding alien languages and cultures. "Captain, I'm picking up references to something called the doctrine of measured conflict. It seems to be some kind of rule system for conducting warfare." "Rules for warfare?" Jin Woo asked. "What kind of rules?" Min Ho worked quickly to translate more. "Alien communications. From what I can understand, sir, they fight until one side reaches a predetermined casualty level. Then the losing side surrenders territory or resources. Battles are fought with agreed-upon weapon types and power levels." The bridge fell silent. The crew exchanged glances. They had all served in the Outer Colony Wars, where survival meant using every advantage available. The idea of voluntary restrictions in combat was alien to them. "Let me understand this," Jin Woo said slowly. "They have rules that limit how hard they can fight?" "Yes, sir," Min Ho confirmed. "It appears to be a galaxy-wide agreement. All civilized races follow these protocols." Lieutenant So Young shook her head in disbelief. "That explains the formations. They're not trying to win quickly. They're trying to create a fair fight." Chief Tae Hyun laughed grimly. "Fair fight? No wonder they've had peace for 300 years. Hard to have real wars when everyone agrees to fight with one hand tied behind their back." Another transmission came from the alien fleet. This time it was Admiral Hyun Su speaking for all three races. "UES Iron Wolf, you appear to be unfamiliar with proper first contact procedures. We will now demonstrate appropriate military protocols. Please observe and learn. Captain Jin Woo activated the ship's main communication system. Go ahead and demonstrate. We're always interested in learning new things. The alien fleets began to reposition themselves. Admiral Hyun-Soo's biomechanical drones formed up in perfect attack formation. They moved with precision that would have been beautiful if it had not been so predictable. War Coordinator Bora's crystal ship began generating targeting patterns that lit up space with geometric designs. Fleet Marshal Dongmin's atmospheric generators created a controlled storm system that surrounded the Thumorian vessel. Standard demonstration protocol initiated, announced Hyun-Soo. We will now conduct a teaching battle using approved doctrine of measured conflict procedures. On the Iron Wolf, the human crew watched in fascination as the aliens began their teaching battle. The biomechanical drones approached in a perfect formation that would have been stunning in a parade. The crystal ship's targeting systems created beautiful light patterns that announced exactly where they planned to shoot. The atmospheric ship generated impressive weather effects that looked dramatic but served no tactical purpose. They're telegraphing every move, observed So Young. It's like they want us to know what they're going to do. Probably part of their rules, replied Tae-hyun. Fair fighting means giving your opponent a chance to respond. Medical Officer He-jin had been monitoring alien communications from her station. She was trained in xenobiology and had been trying to understand alien psychology. Captain, I think they're actually trying to minimize casualties. Their weapon settings are calibrated to disable rather than destroy. Jin-woo studied the alien formations. He had fought against enemies who used overwhelming firepower, superior numbers, and advanced technology. He had never fought against enemies who deliberately handicapped themselves to make battles fair. They're not trying to kill us, he said quietly. They're trying to teach us their rules. The alien demonstration continued. The biomechanical drones fired precisely calibrated shots at the Iron Wolf's shields. The crystal ship sent beautiful energy beams that weakened their defensive systems by exactly measured amounts. The atmospheric ship created pressure waves that rocked the hull without causing serious damage. After several minutes of this careful demonstration, the aliens achieved their target damage levels. The Iron Wolf's shields were reduced to exactly 88% efficiency. According to the doctrine of measured conflict, this meant the humans should now acknowledge defeat and begin surrender negotiations. Admiral Hyun-Soo opened a communication channel. Demonstration complete. You have now experienced proper doctrine of measured conflict procedures. Please prepare for standard surrender protocols. Captain Jin-woo looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at their instruments in disbelief. The aliens had deliberately weakened their own attacks to avoid causing serious damage. They had announced their intentions in advance. They had followed rules that made victory nearly impossible. Communications Officer Min-ho, Jin-woo said, calmly, open a channel to all 3 alien fleets. Channel open, sir. Jin-woo's voice carried across space to the 3 most powerful races in the galaxy. His words would be remembered for centuries to come. Thank you for the demonstration. We understand your rules now. Unfortunately, we don't follow them. Humans fight to win. Prepare to learn what that means. The aliens had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. They had shown humans exactly how they fought, and humans were very good at adapting to new situations. War was about to return to the galaxy. Real war, without rules or limits. The aliens were about to discover what they had forgotten in 300 years of peace. Some lessons could only be learned through experience. Admiral Hyun-Soo felt a mixture of amusement and concern as he processed the human response. The primitive species clearly did not understand proper galactic warfare. This was not unusual. Most new races required education before they could participate in civilized conflict. The Vithrak had been chosen to provide this education because their biomechanical systems were excellent at adaptive teaching. Prepare standard educational battle formation, Hyun-Soo ordered his biomechanical crew, living creatures throughout. The Eternal Brood began to prepare for a demonstration battle. This would be simple and straightforward. The humans would learn proper procedures through direct experience. War Coordinator Bora agreed with the decision. Her crystalline consciousness had analyzed thousands of similar situations throughout galactic history. New races always resisted proper procedures at first. Once they experienced the elegant efficiency of the doctrine of measured conflict, They quickly abandoned their primitive fighting methods. Fleet Marshal Dongmin also approved. His atmospheric sensors indicated the human ship carried weapons designed for total destruction rather than measured conflict. This was typical of pre-civilized races. They would need to learn that such crude methods were unnecessary in modern warfare. The three alien leaders agreed that the Vithrak would conduct the teaching battle alone. This would prevent the humans from being overwhelmed by facing all three fleets simultaneously. The lesson would be more effective if delivered gradually. Hyun-Soo selected exactly 47 biomechanical fighters for the demonstration. This number was calculated based on the size and apparent capabilities of the human vessel. According to standard protocols, 47 fighters were appropriate for educating a single ship of the Iron Wolf's classification. The biomechanical fighters launched from the Eternal Brood in perfect formation. Each fighter was a living weapon, grown rather than built. Their biomechanical brains were connected to a central hive mind that allowed perfect coordination. They had been specifically bred for educational battles with primitive species. On the bridge of the Iron Wolf, Captain Jin Woo watched the alien fighters approach. His experienced eye immediately recognized several things about their formation. They were flying in parade formation, not combat formation. Their approach speed was constant and predictable. They were making no attempt to use stealth or surprise. 47 fighters incoming, reported Lieutenant So Young. Formation suggests ceremonial rather than combat intentions. Weapon signatures. Show reduced power settings, added Chief Engineer Taehyun. They're not planning to destroy us. Communications Officer Minho was monitoring alien transmissions. Captain, they're transmitting educational materials about proper surrender procedures. I think they expect us to give up after they demonstrate their capabilities. Jin Woo had spent years fighting in the Outer Colony Wars. He had faced enemies who used every dirty trick, every technological advantage, every psychological weapon available. He had never faced enemies who announced their plans in advance and deliberately limited their own firepower. Weapons Officer Yoon-ji, he called, to his tactical specialist. She was a quiet woman with steady hands and a gift for precise targeting. What do you see? Yoon-ji studied her tactical display. Sir, their formation has 17 major weaknesses. They're flying in fixed patterns that make them predictable. Their spacing is designed for visual impact rather than mutual support. Most importantly, they're not adapting to our defensive positions. Medical Officer Hyejin, Jin Woo continued. What about their psychology? Hyejin had been studying alien behavior patterns. Captain, they're treating this as a teaching exercise, not a battle. Their stress indicators suggest they're confident, but not aggressive. They expect us to learn and comply with their rules. Jin Woo made his decision. All stations observe only. Let them run their demonstration. I want to understand exactly how they think before we respond. The Vithrak fighters began their educational attack. They moved in beautiful patterns that showed off their biomechanical capabilities. Each fighter fired precisely calculated shots at the Iron Wolf's shields. The attacks were designed to gradually weaken human defenses while demonstrating Vithrak technological superiority. The alien fighters performed elegant maneuvers around the human ship. They showed off their ability to coordinate through biomechanical neural networks. They demonstrated their weapons' precision by hitting exact target points on the hull. Everything was calculated to impress the humans while following proper doctrine of measured conflict procedures. Admiral Hyun-Soo monitored the battle from his command chamber. His biomechanical advisors reported that the demonstration was proceeding perfectly. The human shields were being reduced at the proper rate. The human ship was not responding aggressively, which showed they were learning appropriate behavior. Reduction in human defensive capability at 8%, reported his biomechanical sensor operator. Proceeding toward target reduction of 12%. Excellent, replied Hyun-Soo. Maintain educational pace. Ensure humans have time to observe and learn from each maneuver. On the Iron Wolf, the human crew was indeed learning, but they were not learning what the aliens expected. Their neural network connection makes them predictable, observed So Young. If we disrupt the formation, the individual fighters won't be able to adapt quickly. Their weapons are calibrated for specific shield frequencies, added Taehyun. If we rotate our shield harmonics, their targeting systems will need time to recalibrate. Most importantly, said Yoon-ji quietly, they're not expecting us to fight back effectively. They think we're primitive. Captain Jinwoo watched the alien fighters continue their beautiful, predictable, ineffective demonstration. They were fighting according to rules that had worked for 300 years, rules that assumed all opponents would also follow the same limitations. The Vithrak achieved their target damage level. The Iron Wolf's shields were reduced to exactly 88% efficiency. According to the doctrine of measured conflict, this meant the teaching battle was complete. The humans should now acknowledge the superiority of Vithrak forces and prepare for surrender negotiations. Admiral Hyun-soo opened a communication channel. Educational demonstration complete. You have experienced proper Vithrak military capabilities. Please prepare standard surrender protocols as outlined in Galactic Union regulations. Captain Jinwoo looked around his bridge. His crew was ready. They had studied the alien tactics, identified their weaknesses, and prepared countermeasures. More importantly, they understood the fundamental flaw in the alien approach. The aliens were fighting to prove points. Humans fought to survive. Communications Officer Minho, Jinwoo said calmly, open a channel to all alien vessels. Channel open, sir. Admiral Hyun-soo, Jinwoo said, his voice carrying across space to the alien fleets. Thank you for the demonstration. We have learned a great deal about your capabilities and limitations. Now it's our turn to provide a demonstration. There was a pause. Then Hyun-soo's voice came back, puzzled. Your turn? The educational battle is complete. You should now acknowledge defeat and begin negotiations. Jinwoo's response would echo through galactic history. We don't acknowledge defeat until we're actually defeated. And we're not defeated until we're dead. Let us show you how humans fight when our survival is at stake. The Iron Wolf began to move, not in the elegant patterns favored by galactic civilization, but in the brutal, efficient movements of a species that had learned warfare in the crucible of interstellar conflict. The aliens were about to learn the difference between fighting for territory and fighting for existence. The humans were about to teach the galaxy what unlimited warfare really meant. 300 years of civilized conflict were about to end. The age of total war was beginning again, and this time, the galaxy was not prepared for it. Admiral Hyun-soo watched his biomechanical sensors as the human ship began to move in ways that violated every principle of proper warfare. For the first time in centuries, a Vithrak military commander felt something his species had almost forgotten. Fear. The Iron Wolf moved like a predator unleashed. Captain Jinwoo's command echoed through the ship's communication system. All stations, engage. Show them what human warfare looks like. Weapons Officer Yoon-ji's fingers danced across her control interface. She had been waiting for this moment since the aliens first approached with their ceremonial formations. Targeting solution acquired. Firing. The first human salvo shattered 3 centuries of galactic military doctrine in seconds. Instead of targeting the Vithrak fighters directly, Yoon-ji aimed for the spaces between them. Kinetic penetrators screamed through the alien formation, not trying to destroy the biomechanical craft, but to disrupt their perfect geometry. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Vithrak fighters had been bred for coordinated flight patterns. Their biomechanical brains were hardwired to maintain formation integrity. When the human weapons scattered their formation, the fighters' neural networks experienced something they had never been designed to handle: chaos. Admiral Hyun-soo watched in horror as his perfectly coordinated formation dissolved into confusion. Biomechanical fighters collided with each other as their programming struggled to maintain formations that no longer existed. Some fighters simply stopped moving, their biomechanical brains overwhelmed by tactical situations they had never encountered. What are they doing? Hyun-soo demanded of his biomechanical advisors. Why are they not following proper engagement protocols? The creatures that served as his tactical staff had no answer. They had been evolved for 300 years of ceremonial warfare. They had no experience with opponents who refused to follow the rules. On the Iron Wolf, Chief Engineer Tae-hyun was routing power through systems the aliens had never seen before. Human ships were built for adaptability, not efficiency. Every system had backup connections and alternate power routes. The ship began moving in 3 dimensions simultaneously, using thruster patterns that violated alien understanding of proper ship movement. Power routing to emergency combat systems, Tae-hyun reported. Activating kinetic defense grid, engaging adaptive armor protocols. The Iron Wolf transformed before the aliens' eyes. Armor plates shifted position to present angled. Surfaces to incoming fire. Point defense systems emerged from hidden compartments. The ship's hull configuration changed to optimize for combat rather than space travel. Lieutenant So Young coordinated the assault with cold precision. Her tactical training had prepared her for exactly this situation, fighting an enemy with superior numbers and technology. The key was to attack their assumptions rather than their weapons. Targeting their coordination nodes, she reported. If we can break their neural networks, individual fighters won't be able to adapt to new tactics. Her analysis was correct. The Vithrak fighters depended on their biomechanical hive mind for tactical coordination. When human weapons disrupted their neural connections, each fighter became an isolated unit, trying to follow outdated instructions. War Coordinator Bora watched from the prismatic dawn as the human ship demonstrated capabilities that should have been impossible. Her crystalline consciousness processed thousands of calculations per second, trying to understand how such a primitive vessel could maneuver so effectively. Analysis impossible, she reported to the other alien commanders. Human tactical patterns do not conform to any known military doctrine. Their movements are random. Fleet Marshal Dong Min's atmospheric sensors were equally confused. Human ship is using propulsion methods that create unnecessary stress on their hull. Their maneuvering should have caused structural failure, but their ship continues to function. Neither alien commander understood that human ships were built to survive damage, not avoid it. The Iron Wolf had been designed for the brutal realities of the Outer Colony Wars, where ships routinely operated beyond their normal specifications. Communications. Officer Minho monitored alien transmissions as panic spread through their fleets. Captain, they're requesting instructions from higher command. Their tactical doctrine has no provisions for this type of engagement. Medical Officer Haye Jin was tracking alien stress indicators. Sir, their biomechanical networks are showing signs of psychological trauma. They're not adapted to handle unpredictable combat situations. Captain Jin Woo felt a moment of sympathy for his opponents. They had evolved beyond the brutal necessities of warfare. In doing so, they had forgotten what real combat meant. But sympathy would not protect humanity from whatever other threats existed in the galaxy. Continue the demonstration, he ordered, but target only their weapons and engines. We're here to teach, not to commit genocide. Yunji adjusted her targeting parameters. Human weapons had been designed with multiple settings, from non-lethal to planet-killing. The aliens had only experienced the lowest setting during their own demonstration. Now they experienced something in the middle range. Kinetic projectiles moved at significant fractions of light speed. They punched through biomechanical armor that had been designed to resist energy weapons. Magnetic fields grabbed alien fighters and flung them away from the battle zone, their biomechanical systems scrambled by electromagnetic interference. The remaining Vithrak fighters tried to regroup and follow standard retreat procedures. But retreat procedures required coordination, and their coordination networks had been systematically destroyed by human tactics. Admiral Hyan Su realized with growing horror that his forces were not just being defeated, they were being psychologically broken. His biomechanical warriors, bred for centuries of controlled conflict, were experiencing something their genetics had never prepared them for. Emergency retreat, he ordered. All fighters return to the Eternal Brood immediately. But the biomechanical fighters could not follow the order. Their neural networks were so disrupted that many could not even locate their mothership. Some were flying in circles. Others had simply stopped moving, their biomechanical brains locked in processing loops as they tried to understand what had happened to them. The human demonstration lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When it ended, the Vithrak formation had been completely destroyed without the loss of a single human life. More importantly, the aliens' confidence in their military superiority had been shattered. Captain Jin Woo opened a communication channel to all 3 alien fleets. His voice was calm and professional, as if he had just completed a routine training exercise. Demonstration complete. We have shown you how humans conduct warfare when our survival is threatened. We do not follow your rules because your rules assume both sides want to limit the scope of conflict. We fight to win completely and permanently. Admiral Hyan Su's voice came back across the communication channel. For the first time in his military career, the Vithrak commander sounded uncertain. Your tactics are Unprecedented. They violate all principles of civilized warfare. No, Jinwu replied. They violate your principles. Human warfare has only one principle: the survival of our species. Everything else is negotiable. War Coordinator Bora's crystalline voice joined the conversation. Such tactics could lead to the complete destruction of star systems. Entire civilizations could be eliminated. Yes, Jinwu agreed. That's why we don't start wars. But when others start them with us, we finish them. Your choice is simple: peaceful coexistence or the return of unlimited warfare to the galaxy. Fleet Marshal Dongmin's atmospheric voice carried notes of confusion and fear. But how do you determine victory without agreed-upon casualty limits? How do you know when to stop fighting? Jinwu's answer would be remembered throughout galactic history. We stop fighting when our enemies are no longer capable of threatening us. Sometimes that means negotiation. Sometimes it means their complete destruction. We let them choose which option they prefer. The communication channel fell silent. The three most powerful military forces in the galaxy were trying to process concepts they had not encountered in 300 years. They had forgotten that warfare could be unlimited. They had forgotten that some species would fight to extinction, rather than accept defeat. Most importantly, they had forgotten that the universe was a dangerous place where survival was not guaranteed. The humans had just reminded them of these forgotten truths. The galaxy would never be the same. The emergency council meeting aboard the Prismatic Dawn was unlike anything in galactic history. Admiral Hyan Su's image flickered through biomechanical transmission protocols, his compound eyes showing stress patterns that had not been seen in Vithrak society for centuries. War Coordinator Bora's crystalline form pulsed with calculated uncertainty as she processed data that challenged fundamental assumptions about civilized warfare. Fleet Marshal Dongmin's gaseous presence swirled with atmospheric disturbances that reflected his inner turmoil. We must understand what we are dealing with, Bora declared, her crystalline voice resonating through the chamber. These humans have capabilities that should not exist. Hyan Su's biomechanical advisors had been analyzing the battle data continuously since the engagement ended. Our fighters were not just defeated, he reported. They were psychologically traumatized. Many are still in medical pods, their biomechanical neural networks unable to process what they experienced. The humans used tactics that violated every principle of warfare we understand, Dongmin observed. They targeted coordination rather than destruction. They attacked our ability to fight rather than our ships themselves. Bora activated the Prismatic Dawn's vast crystalline memory banks. Information flowed through geometric patterns of light as the ship's consciousness searched through millions of years of galactic history. I am searching for any precedent, she announced. Any species that has fought without following the doctrine of measured conflict. The search took several minutes. When it completed, the results were disturbing. No records found, Bora reported. Every spacefaring civilization in galactic history has eventually adopted controlled warfare protocols. The few species that refused, she paused. The few species that refused are extinct. Extinct by whose hand? Asked Hyan Su. Their own, Bora replied quietly. Species that cannot control their warfare eventually destroy themselves. This is why the doctrine of measured conflict exists. It prevents civilizations from committing suicide through unlimited violence. Dongmin's atmospheric sensors were analyzing data from the human ship. But these humans are clearly space-capable. They have achieved interstellar travel. How have they survived their own violent tendencies? The question hung in the council chamber like a dangerous gas cloud. If humans could maintain interstellar civilization while practicing unlimited warfare, it challenged everything the galactic powers believed about the evolution of intelligence. Admiral Hyan Su ordered his biomechanical intelligence networks to capture and analyze human communications. What they discovered was worse than they had feared. They speak casually of wars lasting decades, he reported. Their historical records mention conflicts that consumed entire continents. They have weapons designed not to capture territory, but to make it uninhabitable, impossible, declared Bora. No rational species would create such weapons. Yet they exist, Hyan Su continued. Furthermore, their ship construction suggests they expect to fight outnumbered and outgunned. Every system has redundant backups. Their armor is designed to function while severely damaged. Their weapons are built for reliability rather than efficiency. War Coordinator Bora processed this information through her crystalline consciousness. The implications were terrifying. They have designed their technology assuming they will always be fighting for survival. Fleet Marshal Dongmin was studying human atmospheric emissions from the Iron Wolf. Their stress indicators during the battle were minimal. They showed no signs of combat anxiety. Fighting appears to be natural for them. The three commanders fell silent as they processed what they had learned. The humans were not a primitive species that needed education in proper warfare. They were a species that had perfected unlimited warfare and survived. Communications officer Min Ho aboard the Iron Wolf had been monitoring alien transmissions throughout their emergency meeting. Captain Jin Woo listened to his report with growing concern. "Sir, they're trying to understand how we can practice unlimited warfare without destroying ourselves," Min Ho reported. "They seem to believe that any species capable of total war will eventually commit suicide." Medical Officer Haye Jin looked up from her analysis of alien psychology. "Captain, I think they've forgotten what existential warfare means. They've evolved beyond the need to fight for species survival." Lieutenant So Young was studying tactical data from the alien fleets. That explains their formations and weapons design. They're not built to destroy enemies completely. They're built to prove superiority and force negotiation. Chief Engineer Tae Hyun shook his head in amazement. They've made warfare safe. No wonder they've had peace for 300 years. Captain Jinwoo considered the implications. The aliens had achieved something humans had always dreamed of, an end to devastating warfare. But they had paid a price for that achievement. They had forgotten how to defend themselves against enemies who did not share their limitations. "The question is," Jinwoo said slowly, "what happens when their enemies don't follow their rules?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Communications Officer Min Ho detected a new transmission from the Alien Council. War Coordinator Bora was speaking directly to the human ship. "Captain Jinwoo, we request additional information about human warfare capabilities. Our analysis suggests your species has maintained interstellar civilization while practicing unlimited combat. This should be impossible, according to all historical precedent." Jinwoo activated the ship's main communications system. "War Coordinator Bora, you're correct that unlimited warfare is dangerous, but you're wrong about it being impossible to survive." "Please explain," Bora requested. "We survived because we learned to limit ourselves," Jinwoo replied. "But our limits are different from yours. We don't limit the methods we use in warfare. We limit the reasons we go to war." There was a pause as the aliens processed this concept. "You fight without restriction," observed Admiral Hyun-soo, "but only when you believe your survival is threatened." "Exactly," Jinwoo confirmed. "We learned that unlimited warfare is too dangerous to use for territory, resources, or political advantage. But when someone threatens our existence, we use every weapon and tactic available." Fleet Marshal Dongmin's gaseous form rippled with confusion. "But how do you determine when your existence is truly threatened?" Jinwoo's answer revealed the fundamental difference between human and galactic thinking. "We assume that anyone who attacks us might be trying to exterminate us. We don't wait to find out if they're following rules. We respond to aggression as if our species depends on victory." The aliens realized they had made a catastrophic error in judgment. They had assumed the humans were primitive because they used kinetic weapons and metal armor. They had not understood that humans had evolved beyond the need for elegant weapons because they had learned to use crude weapons with devastating efficiency. Medical Officer Hee-jin's casual comment during the battle suddenly took on new meaning. She had mentioned that humans fought for survival. The aliens had thought this was primitive thinking. Now they understood it was the key to human success. Humans had not forgotten what it meant to face extinction. They had built their entire military philosophy around the assumption that every conflict might be their last. They fought every battle as if the survival of their species depended on victory. The galactic powers had forgotten what existential warfare meant. They had evolved beyond the need for species survival thinking, but in doing so, they had made themselves vulnerable to any enemy who still remembered how to fight without limits. The humans had just demonstrated that they were such an enemy. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when unlimited warfare Return to civilized space. The 300 years of controlled conflict were ending. A new age was beginning, and the established powers were not prepared for it. War was coming to the galaxy. Real war, without rules or mercy. And the aliens had just met the species that would teach them what that meant. The combined alien fleet assembled for what they believed would be the final demonstration of galactic superiority. Admiral Hyun-Soo's eternal brood took position at the center of the formation, its biomechanical hull bristling with living weapons. War Coordinator Bora's prismatic dawn flanked the massive bioship, its crystalline surfaces creating geometric patterns of deadly beauty. Fleet Marshal Dongmin's Storm's Eye completed the triangle, atmospheric generators already beginning to create localized weather systems in the vacuum of space. "This ends now," declared Admiral Hyun-Soo to his biomechanical crew. "The humans must learn their place in galactic civilization." The three fleets represented the combined military might of an entire galaxy. Thousands of ships in perfect formation. Weapons charged, crews prepared for battle according to protocols refined over 3 centuries. No single vessel had ever faced such overwhelming force and survived. Captain Jin Woo studied the massive alien formation from the bridge of the Iron Wolf. His weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the largest military fleet in galactic history arrange itself for his destruction. "Analysis, Lieutenant So-young," he requested calmly. So-young's tactical display showed the alien fleet in all its terrible magnificence. "Combined firepower exceeds our defensive capabilities by a factor of several thousand," she reported. "Their formation is designed to prevent escape while maximizing overlapping fields of fire." "Weapon status, Chief Taehyun?" "All systems operational, sir. But Captain?" Taehyun's voice carried the weight of his years of combat experience. "Even our best weapons can't penetrate that much concentrated firepower." Medical Officer Hai-jin. "What about their psychology?" Hye-jin had been monitoring alien stress indicators since the fleet assembled. "They're confident, sir. This formation represents everything they understand about overwhelming force. They believe victory is inevitable." Captain Jin Woo nodded slowly. He had faced impossible odds before during the Outer Colony Wars. The key to survival was not matching enemy strength. The key was making enemy strength irrelevant. "Communications Officer Min-ho," he ordered. "Patch me through to Chief Engineer Taehyun's station." "Channel open, sir." "Chief, prepare Protocol Omega." Taehyun's hands paused over his control interface. Protocol Omega was a human military doctrine that had been developed during the darkest days of the colony wars. It was designed for situations where conventional victory was impossible. "Sir, Protocol Omega is—" Taehyun began. "I know what it is, Chief. Prepare for implementation." Protocol Omega was based on a simple principle. If you cannot defeat an enemy's military, defeat their ability to project power. The doctrine focused on infrastructure, supply lines, and command systems rather than direct engagement with enemy forces. The alien commanders watched in confusion as the Iron Wolf began moving in patterns that made no tactical sense. Instead of fleeing or attacking the assembled fleet, the human ship was maneuvering toward what appeared to be empty space. "Human vessel is not engaging our formation," reported Bora's crystalline sensors. "Their trajectory suggests they are avoiding direct confrontation." "Cowardice," declared Dongmin. "They recognize the futility of resistance." Admiral Hyun-Soo was not so certain. His biomechanical instincts were warning him that something was wrong. The human ship was moving with purpose, not panic. Weapons Officer Yoon-ji activated targeting systems that the aliens had never seen before. Human weapons technology had been designed for asymmetric warfare against superior enemies. Instead of trying to match alien firepower, human weapons were built to exploit weaknesses. "Targeting command and control nodes," Yoon-ji reported, "focusing on biomechanical neural networks, crystalline data cores, and atmospheric coordination systems." The first human salvo did not target the alien fleet. Instead, kinetic projectiles screamed toward the support vessels hidden behind the main formation. Supply ships, communication relays, and command coordinators that the aliens had, not even considered as potential targets. The effect was immediate and devastating. The biomechanical neural networks that coordinated the Vithrak fleet began experiencing communication delays as relay nodes were systematically destroyed. The crystalline data cores that processed Nexari tactical information suffered cascade failures as their backup systems were eliminated. The atmospheric coordination systems that allowed Thamorian ships to work together lost synchronization as their control nodes went offline. "What are they targeting?" demanded Admiral Hyun-Soo as his biomechanical coordination systems began. Failing War Coordinator, Bora's crystalline consciousness processed the human attack pattern with growing alarm. "They are not attacking our weapons. They are attacking our ability to use our weapons." Chief Engineer Tae Hyun was routing power through systems that violated every principle of galactic engineering. Human technology had been built for reliability, under extreme conditions. While alien systems were elegant and efficient, human systems were crude and indestructible. "Rerouting power through backup networks," he reported. "Activating redundant command systems, engaging emergency protocols." The Iron Wolf transformed again, but this time the transformation was more radical. Hidden weapon systems emerged from concealed compartments. Armor plating shifted to reveal targeting arrays that had been disguised as structural elements. The ship's entire configuration changed as systems designed for asymmetric warfare came online. Lieutenant So Young coordinated an attack that defied everything the aliens understood about space combat. Instead of fighting the enemy fleet, she targeted the infrastructure that made the enemy fleet possible. "Disrupting supply lines," she reported, "eliminating command coordination, fragmenting their formation unity." The alien fleet began to dissolve into chaos. Ships that had operated in perfect coordination for centuries suddenly found themselves unable to communicate effectively. The elegant formations that were the pride of galactic military doctrine collapsed as individual vessels lost contact with their command structures. Communications Officer Min-ho monitored alien transmissions as panic spread through their ranks. "Captain, they're requesting instructions that aren't coming. Their command systems are failing faster than they can compensate." Medical Officer Hae-jin tracked alien stress indicators as they reached levels not seen in galactic military history. "Sir, their crews are experiencing psychological breakdown. They don't know how to function without centralized coordination." The human demonstration of Protocol Omega lasted exactly 18 minutes. When it ended, the largest military fleet in galactic history was scattered across several light hours of space, its ships unable to coordinate, communicate, or even locate each other. Captain Jin Woo opened a communication channel to any alien vessels still capable of receiving transmissions. His voice carried across the scattered fleet with calm authority. "This concludes our demonstration of human asymmetric warfare doctrine. You assembled a fleet designed to win battles. We eliminated your ability to fight battles. Your choice is simple: peaceful coexistence or the systematic destruction of your capacity to project military power." Admiral Hyun-Soo's voice came back across the fractured communication networks, weak and distorted by the destruction of his biomechanical relay systems. "Your tactics, they could destabilize entire star systems. Whole civilizations could collapse if their infrastructure is targeted." "Yes," Jinwoo agreed. "That's why we prefer peaceful solutions. But when forced to fight, we fight to ensure our survival. Your infrastructure exists at our sufferance. Remember that." War Coordinator. Bora's crystalline voice was filled with something the Nexari had not experienced in millennia: genuine fear. "You could destroy galactic civilization itself with such methods." "We could," Jinwoo confirmed. "But we won't, as long as galactic civilization leaves us alone. Attack us, and we will demonstrate what the complete destruction of interstellar infrastructure looks like." Fleet Marshal Dongmin's atmospheric voice carried notes of defeat and confusion. "How do we negotiate with an enemy that can eliminate our ability to exist as a spacefaring civilization?" Jinwoo's final transmission would reshape galactic politics for centuries to come. "You negotiate by treating us as equals instead of primitives. You negotiate by understanding that some species have never forgotten what extinction means. Most importantly, you negotiate by remembering that peace is only possible when all parties choose peace." The communication channel closed. The Iron Wolf continued on its original course, leaving behind the scattered remains of the largest military fleet in galactic history. the three alien commanders found themselves facing a completely new reality. For 300 years, they had controlled the galaxy through military superiority. They had maintained peace through the threat of overwhelming force. Now they faced an enemy that could neutralize their military advantages without directly destroying their fleets. Humans had introduced a new paradigm to galactic warfare, the concept that infrastructure was more vulnerable than military forces. They had demonstrated that elegant weapons and beautiful formations were meaningless if the systems that coordinated them could be systematically eliminated. Most importantly, they had shown that a species that remembered what extinction meant would fight with methods that civilized races had forgotten were possible. The galaxy,